Welcome to the broadcasting service of the Syrian Arab Republic, broadcasting from Damascus. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The 60-minute English transmission is on the air of today, the 10th of June 2014, from 23 hours till midnight Damascus local time, that is 20 hours till 21 hours Greenwich Mean Time.
We transmit our program to the following satellites: Russian Express IM-22, orbit location 53 degrees east, frequency 125.45, horizontal symbol rate 3000, directed to the Arab homeland, North Africa and Europe. Arabsat 5C, orbit location 20 degrees east, frequency 3934L, symbol rate 27500, directed to Africa. Nilesat, orbit location 7.2 degrees west, frequency 109.22, vertical symbol rate 27500, directed to the Arab homeland, North Africa and South Europe. Galaxy 19, orbit location 97 degrees west, frequency 121.46, vertical symbol rate 22,000, directed to North America and Canada. Hesbesat 1C, orbit location 30 degrees west, frequency 121.32, horizontal symbol rate 27,500, directed to South America. AGSA number 5, orbit location 100.5 degrees east, frequency 3820, vertical symbol rate 27,500, directed to Asia. Intelsat 19, orbit location 166 degrees east, frequency 127.26, horizontal symbol rate 280.66, directed to Australia.
You can listen to a recording of our program on our websites, www.syrian9.sy, then click the link Radio Programs. Another alternative website is www.radio-damascus.net. Both websites are updated daily.
Our program for tonight goes as follows. Our news bulletin in a few minutes from now, to be followed by news and reviews, press review, and then 3 feature programs, namely a special program on the passing away of the late President Hafez al-Assad, Syria Today, Peace was Option. Following that, we present our news summary and we sign off with the Syrian national anthem at the top of the hour.
For the company of our sound technicians Dima Balta and Muhammad Juju, here in the studio, my colleague Hiba Shadoud and myself, Lama Says, we wish you all the best with tonight's items for program from Damascus Radio. This is Damascus Radio. Now stay tuned for the news. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Honors Bulletin for tonight, right jointly by my colleague here in the studio, Hiba Shadoud, and myself, Lama Says. President Bashar al-Assad received today the former candidate to the presidential elections, Dr. Hassan al-Nouri. Al-Nouri said the presidential elections that took place last week were conducted with transparency and integrity and constituted a crucial step on the way of consolidating the principles of democracy. On his part, President al-Assad said the success of the elections process and the high turnout of citizens at the ballot boxes has brought to light the strength of the Syrian people and their adherence to their free decision-making despite the difficult and extraordinary circumstances Syria has been living and the attempts of certain sides abroad to impose their will on the Syrians. President Bashar al-Assad also received the former candidate to the presidential elections, Mr. Maher al-Hajjar. Al-Hajjar said during the meeting that the great confidence granted by the Syrian people to President al-Assad through the elections confirms the Syria's determinations to combat terrorism until it's fully eliminated and to restore security and stability to Syria and move forward towards a better future. On his part, President al-Assad said that the first experience of multi-party elections in Syria has been successful and has affirmed the Syrian successful successful practices of democracy. He said the big victory in these elections are the Syrian people who have confronted all challenges and have had their say with a strong determination and solid will about the future of their country. And now over to you, Hiba.
Members of the People's Assembly have said that holding the presidential elections is a proof of the sovereignty of the Syrian state and its ability to overcome all conspiracies. This came during an assembly session chaired by Speaker Mohammed Jihad al-Aham. The members said that the Syrian people proved that they alone grant legitimacy and choose their president of Syria, and that the elections shocked Syria's enemies and constitute a civilized response to the lies these enemies attempted to promulgate. The Assembly referred to the Amnesty Decree number 22 for 2014, a bill on NGOs and a bill on rules for assigning real estate judges to the Constitutional and Legislative Affairs Committee for study. Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi said that Takfiri terrorism targeting Syria and the terrorism affecting Iraq and other areas of the world are one and the same, as they have the same sponsors and they seek to tear the Arab nation apart. Meeting Iraqi ambassador in Damascus, Ala al-Jawadi, on Monday, al-Halaqi denounced recent terrorist bombings in Iraq, asserting that terrorism is a common enemy that will be defeated jointly. He also congratulated Iraqi people over the recent success of the Iraqi parliamentary elections, affirming that Syrians will emerge victorious soon and begin building Syria's future, underlining the importance of Arab solidarity and integration in all fields and developing Syrian-Iraqi relations in economy, trade and development. For his part, al-Jawadi voiced confidence in Syrians' ability to achieve victory and rebuild Syria, voicing his government's desire to expand cooperation with Syria. He also congratulated Syrians over the successful presidential elections. Discussions touch upon cooperation in the fields of economy, commerce, industry, development, agriculture, electric power, petroleum, water resources, expanding trade exchange, and establishing business partnerships.
Syrian Arab Army units have foiled an attempt by terrorists to advance the direction of Tel al-Jumu'ah in our countryside in the governorate of Daraa, inflicting on them heavy losses. In implementation of the Amnesty Decree number 22 issued by President Bashar al-Assad yesterday, a number of prisoners who had not been involved in shedding the Syrian blood have been released from Hama Central Prison. The governor of Hama, Dr. Ghassan Khalaf, hopes such measure will provide an opportunity for them to reconsider their life behavior and tendency and to contribute to the reconstruction of the homeland. He called on all those who have been set free to return to their families, to merge in their societies and to resume their normal activities and life. Over to you, Hiba.
Syrian Arab Red Crescent, in cooperation with the International Committee of the Red Cross in Syria, with facilities offered by the Syrian government, has delivered a convoy of humanitarian aid to the citizens affected by the armed groups in the western countryside of Aleppo. In a statement, member of the Executive Bureau of Aleppo Governorate, Abdulhani Qassab, stressed that delivering aid to citizens in Aleppo countryside affirmed that the government is shouldering its responsibility towards every Syrian citizen wherever they exist. He pointed out that another medical convoy was delivered to the citizens in the Old City and a number of neighborhoods controlled by the armed groups, adding that it will be distributed under the supervision of the Syrian Arab Red Crescent. Head of the Media Relations of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Ralph al-Hajj, described this step as positive on the level of delivering aid to citizens in need in Syria, adding that the convoy consists of 7 trucks loaded with food, kitchenware and blankets enough for 30,000 citizens, which will be distributed in Orum al-Kurba area in the western countryside of Aleppo. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Hassan Amir Abdullahian stressed that Tehran and Cairo have close viewpoints towards Syria and that there will be joint efforts in the future to reach a political solution to the crisis in Syria. At a press conference held at the Iranian mission in Cairo, Abdullahian pointed out that he discussed with the Egyptian officials the latest developments in the region, pointing out that Iran had distinguished relations with the neighboring countries and Arab states. There is ongoing dialogue between Iran and Syria. He clarified the security of Egypt is security for Iran, and the results of the presidential elections in Egypt provide stability and security for the Middle East.
Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott has warned that the Australian terrorists who joined the terrorist armed groups in Syria and come back to Australia form a big threat where full alert is needed. On its part, the Australian Financial Review newspaper wrote the fact that a number of citizens from several countries head to Syria to join the armed terrorist groups there has become a source of concern for those countries, especially in light of the difficulties facing those countries in preventing them to go to Syria and then following them up. In Pakistan, Karachi airport was exposed to a terrorist attack for the second time in less than 24 hours, but no injuries were reported. It is to be noted that the first attack on the airport was the bloodiest during the last month, which resulted in the killing of 27 people along with the 10 armed men. Now over to you, Hiba.
The NATO has announced that 5 of its soldiers were killed in an armed attack south of Afghanistan, with no more details provided. This incident is considered the worst since last April, as it raised the death toll among the NATO forces to 36 soldiers since the beginning of this year. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the Ukrainian army has continued bombing Slavyansk city east of Ukraine. The city's mayor spokeswoman, Stella Khorosheva, said that it is possible that Kiev authorities may take any measures with reference to where the Ukrainian army moved chemical weapons containers to an airport controlled by the Ukrainian National Guards in Kramatorsk city. It is to be noted that 5 people were killed due to the heavy artillery bombing by the Ukrainian forces on Slavyansk city yesterday. Meanwhile, head of the International Affairs Committee in the Russian Duma Council, Alexei Poshagov, has called for imposing sanctions against some Ukrainian personalities for violating the rights of the Russian journalists who are working there and for kidnapping some and assaulting others.
And that's the end of the news bulletin for tonight.
Damascus Radio presents News and Views. The presidential elections in Syria have yielded a strong response to the U.S. and its regional and international allies, who view with dismay the unshakable will and relentless determination of the Syrian people. The Syrian people voted with full freedom to elect a president for the Syrian Arab Republic and draw their destiny and that of Syria. The elections mark the end of the plot targeting Syria, and the Syrians' enthusiasm for the voting process sent a shocking message to the West. The Syrians' eagerness constitutes a momentous victory for them and marks an historical defeat for the U.S. and its allies. The Syrian people reflected, through participating in the presidential elections, a firm will and greater belief in the homeland. The Syrian citizens have chosen their president, whom they find qualified to be a president at this critical time. This day will be a celebration for democracy and a beginning of political pluralism. June the 3rd is historical and memorable in the Syrians' hearts and minds, as the Syrian people's will determines the future of the country. No one in the entire world can prevent the Syrians from drawing the future of their country. No one grants legitimacy except the Syrian people. The Syrians registered their free will in democratic, transparent elections to elect the president who will lead them in the future. The election day marks the beginning of return to rebuilding, making national reconciliation, and going ahead in the political solution track to end the crisis. The world should realize, while seeing the presidential elections, that Syria is a country of one people and one leader, despite the attempts of more than 83 countries to ignite sedition and sectarian war among the Syrians and destroy their state. All the sides which oppose holding the elections should inspect the scene in many Syrian provinces and learn the real democracy. That was News and Views from Damascus Radio. Damascus Radio presents Syrian Local Press Review. The local newspapers today gave prominence to the following headlines and news items. President Bashar al-Assad receives cables of congratulation from Iranian President Hassan Rouhani and from Arab parties and figures on winning a new presidential term. Most of the cables expressed that the election process has been an historical event which showed the people's trust in the leadership. President al-Assad issues decree number 22 for the year 2014, which grants a general pardon for the crimes committed before June the 9th, 2014. His Excellency also receives the credentials of the two ambassadors, that of Democratic Korea and that of China. The People's Assembly endorses a law which exempts the loans of the Cooperative Agricultural Bank from the contract interests and the penalties on late payments. Prime Minister Dr. Wael Halqi meets the Iraqi ambassador and opens the company of healthcare. He also inspects the work in the Bank of Popular Investment in Damascus. In a word to journalists, Premier al-Halqi says Syria expects a potential promising stage of investment in the project of reconstruction. On the Syrian steadfastness, the front page editorial in Authority Daily says that the reasons behind that steadfastness are numerous. Nevertheless, circumstances sometimes govern the levels of steadfastness. On this, the internal construction has provided factors of structural steadfastness which emanates from settling a social and economic basic ground, as well as establishing institutions that are capable of dealing with the crisis events. Accordingly, Syria records the factors of steadfastness based on surety of the institution's work, besides their role in the progress with firm steps. After all, the factors of the Syrian steadfastness have achieved their political effectiveness. They leaned on the basis that held the pillars of its civilizational rising, the paper concludes. That was a review of the Syrian local press issued in Damascus this morning.
لما بتقتل تذكر عم تقتل خيك، ولما تهدم تذكر عم تهدم بيتك. لما تقتل تذكر عم تقتل خيك، ولما تهدم تذكر عم تهدم بيتك. سوريا موجوعة عم تنزف دموعها، سوريا موجوعة عم تنزف دموعها. عولادها كانوا شموعة عأهل الثار غرابة، عأهل الثار غرابة. وسكابة يا دموع سكابة بالدم تعطر ترابة، سكابة يا دموع سكابة بالدم تعطر ترابة. سكابة يا دموع سكابة عأهل الثار غرابة، عأهل الثار غرابة. مش رجولي تسفك دم، يتم صفر تبكي الله ما بيرضى بالظلم، للساعة حسوب حسابها. مش رجولي تسفك دم، يتم صفر تبكي الله ما بيرضى بالظلم، للساعة حسوب حسابها. سوريا موجوعة عم تنزف دموعها، سوريا موجوعة عم تنزف دموعها. عولادها كانوا شموعها عأهل الثار غرابة، عأهل الثار غرابة. وسكابة يا دموع سكابة بالدم تعطر ترابة، سكابة يا دموع سكابة بالدم تعطر ترابة. سكابة يا دموع سكابة عأهل الثار غرابة، عأهل الثار غرابة. بدنا تتحسن الظروف ونعمرها بالمعروف. ما في سوري بيرضى يشوف أرضه تودع شبابها. بدنا تتحسن الظروف ونعمرها بالمعروف. ما في سوري بيرضى يشوف أرضه تودع شبابها. سوريا موجوعة عم تنزف دموعها. سوريا موجوعة عم تنزف دموعها. عولادها كانوا شموعة عأهلا صاروا غرابة. عأهلا صاروا غرابة. وسكابة يا دموع سكابة بالدم تعطر ترابة. سكابة يا دموع سكابة بالدم تعطر ترابة. سكابة يا دموع سكابة عأهلا صاروا غرابة. صاروا غرابة.
Radio Damascus presents a special program on the 14th anniversary of the passing away of President Hafiz al-Assad. Prepared by Afaf Nabilsi. Presented by Randa Qaddura. Directed by Hamdi Shweki. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to all of you. In the 10th day of June 2000, Syrian people lived for the most difficult and very tough moments, and decisive at the same time. The very tough for the loss of an exceptional leader who led his country and his nation to safety in the time of storms, while very decisive in following up the triumphant march after he had left political and unique ideological heritage in putting his nation on safety railway. Few moments after his leaving, the unanimous observers, analysts, politicians, and world leaders agreed that the eternal leader was a statesman par excellence and exceptional leader without any doubt, and because of that, he will stay in the heart of every Syrian. The outstanding figures, if their bodies left, their ideas would remain glowing in the conscience of the nation and its mind. The eternal leader had believed in struggling hard to recover the use of tribes, consecrated the culture of resistance, and drew the path of freedom and salvation from the yoke of the occupiers. He had been marked by calm and objectivity, vision's clarity, anticipated the events and analyzed their causes and consequences while predicted their repercussions. He had been marked by calm objectivity, clarity of vision, anticipated the events, analyzed their causes and consequences, and predicted their repercussions. He also made of Syria a rare resilience and a hard number. He had considered the Palestinian case in Syria's first case, and the Central Arabs' cause. He put that fact in the memory of the nation, paving the way to embrace the Palestinian revolution and its heroic resistance, considering it as the only hope for the liberation of man and the earth. He supported the national resistance in southern Lebanon. The eternal leader was the first who called to the strategic peace, which ensures justice and inclusiveness, relying on the resolutions of the international legitimacy. He rejected all meager and imperfect compromises and agreements that circumvent the rights of the Arabs. He was an insight reader into the history, while his policy was expressing the pulse of the Arab people, and his tactic was relying on negotiation at a time when the nation needs to negotiate, and on the war at a time when the enemy does not understand only the language of force. So was the victory of the October Liberation of War 1973, the prominent station in the modern Arab history. With regard to the Arab solidarity, the eternal leader was the one who sought to activate it in words and deeds, because it is the first step towards comprehensive unity as the suitable ground to make the Arabs the regional power between the blocks of the world. He sought also with his all efforts to overcome Arab differences. Thanks to all of these distinctive qualities, the eternal leader had gained his people's confidence, who knew by their innate sense that the continuation in his process calls for rallying around President Bashar al-Assad, who grew up at his father's school, as well as he is enjoying with all good qualities and attributes of and with skillful leadership, which makes him carrying the banner and following up the way of struggle. With his insightful reading for the nature of the sensitive stage, President Bashar al-Assad was very clear in identifying the priorities and in adhering to constants and in fixing the resistance culture as he was sticking by the strategic option of peace. He repeatedly stressed that this peace will not be achieved if the rights is not returning back to their owners and the land to its people unless the Palestinian state is established with Jerusalem its capital. In the cases of Iraq and Lebanon, President Bashar al-Assad was the first who warned of the policy's power, the dictations, the invasion, the occupation and sectarian sedition. What had happened in these two brotherly countries is the best proof on the accuracy of his vision. Syria's attending of the 20th Arab Summit in Damascus was the appropriate occasion to reflect its vision of the joint Arab action and the enhancement of Arab solidarity. Today is the anniversary of the departure of the passing away of the eternal leader, which passed to confirm to the world that Syria is faithful to its principles and fixed on its stance, and that President Hafez al-Assad was an exceptional leader in an exceptional time. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to a special program on the occasion of the 14th anniversary of the passing away of President Hafez al-Assad. Prepared by Asaf Nabalsi. Presented by Randa Qaddura. Directed by Hamdi Shwiki.
يا بلادي يا وصية أجدادي يا أرض العبادي يا سراج الليالي تبقي مصاني يا أغلى أماني عنوانك عنواني يا فرحة أطفالي سوريا يا بلادي بلادي سوريا زينة الأوطان الله بعين النصر حاميك نادي سوريا زينة الأوطان الله بعين نصر حاميك شعبك محبي والوفا عنوان والخير واقر في أراضيك جبالك منارة والعدل صوان الغيم بوادي مفتوح على حبابي روب المجد كتابي يا ملك الغوالي راضي تربينا نحنا واهالينا وباسمك غنينا عايش فيك عالي سوريا يا بلادي بلادي اول بيت للانسان وكل الحضارات بلادي أول بيت للإنسان وكل الحضارة تبني فيك فيك الصغارة ووحدة الأديان والنور شعشع في لياليك انت الوفا والحب والإيمان وكلمة صلاة لله صليك يا بلادي بلدنا عن حب تعاهدنا قلبك يا أسدنا بعدك ما في خالق حب الشعب سلاحك والوفا مفتاحك خدنا تحت جناحك يا نسر العلا.
بلادي سوريا زينة الأوطان الله بعين اللطف حاميكي شعبك محبي والوفا عنوان والخير واصر في أراضيكي. بالك منارة والعزم صوان بالك منارة والعزم صوان والعز كل الرب عاطيكي. بلادي سوريا زينة الأوطان الله بعين اللطف حاميكي.
Damascus Radio presents Syria Today. A weekly program prepared by Ma'moon Samra and read by Lama Sais. With the company of sound technician Suhail Khouri. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to a new edition of our weekly business program, Syria Today. Government allocates 4 million Syrian pounds to improve services in Damascus countryside. The government announced 4 billion pounds allocated to improve the services, development and industrial sectors in Damascus countryside. The announcement was made by Prime Minister al-Halqi during a tour to a number of factories and public establishments in the province. The Premier checked the situation of the General Company for Cable Industry and the gas factory in Al-Qadam area and inspected the ongoing work of rehabilitating Al-Ghizlania Mile in order to be put into service as soon as possible. The tour is part of a series of visits that the government has embarked on with view of the establishment field communication with all service institutions across Syria. He highlighted the significance of the industrial and production sectors as being a fundamental pillar of a nationwide reconstruction process that was set in motion. Moreover, the Prime Minister met with economic, social and religious speakers during his visit, asserting that Damascus countryside is witnessing a flurry of political and social activities and is living a state of recovery, whose stage has been set with the Syrian army successes on the battlefield. Al-Halqi gave a thorough review of the economic, political and social landscape in the countryside amid war, hailing the model of national reconciliation that was achieved in Damascus countryside, with emphasis laid on the importance of having it replicated elsewhere across Syria. Meeting religious dignitaries in the province, al-Halqi expressed appreciation for their thought, which calls for fraternity, tolerance and reaching out to the other. Syria Democratic Korea to bolster economic ties. Activities of the 9th session of the Syrian DPRK joint Economic Committee kicked off on Wednesday. The Ministry of Culture, who heads the Syrian side to the economic meeting, underscored the necessity of boosting economic, culture, scientific, media and technical ties between the two countries. Syria has been under an unfair economic blockade for 3 years, the minister said, the same that North Korea suffered from, which, she says, points to numerous command dominators between the two friendly countries. The Minister of Culture said Syria is well on its way to recover thanks to the sacrifices of the Syrian army, indicating that the reconstruction process has already kicked into gear. She stressed that the necessity of carrying out investment in the research, scientific, technical and technology fields between the two friendly countries. The minister hailed the census of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in support of just Arab causes and its support to the people in Syria in its battle against terrorism. DPRK Minister of Foreign Trade, who is head of the DPRK delegation, Ray Rang Nam, expressed readiness to help in economic and industrial projects and bolstering bilateral relations. He affirmed that the Syrian people will be victorious in the battle against terrorism despite the U.S. conspiracies. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of our program, Syria Today. Till next week, we wish you all the best from Radio Damascus. Thank you for listening and have a good night.
وحدك للأمجاد مراي، وحدك ضو الصبح الجاي والوطن رجال تحميه. انت حملت الراي للأمجاد مراي، وحدك ضو الصبح الجاي والوطن رجال تحميه.
وعدنا اللي كبرنا فيه أغلى ما عنا الناصين، كان بلاد بالأعاد وعن نصر الوطن نوديه.
قائدنا وغيرك ما بدنا، على حب الوطن يوحدنا، عهد الله نصون تعاهدنا وبالدم تراب نرويه.
قائدنا
وغيرك ما بدنا،
على حب
الوطن يوحدنا،
عهد الله
نصون تعاهدنا وبالدم تراب نرويه.
وعدنا اللي كبرنا فيه أغلى ما عنا الناصين،
حامي بلادي من الأعادي وعن نصر الوطن موديه.
Radio Damascus presents Quest for Peace, World's Option. Prepared by Afaf Nablsi. Presented by Randa Qadoura. Sound technician Hamdi Shweki. Good evening to all of you. If we go back to the Israeli studies dealing with the Arab character, we will notice that they rely on dishonesty and deception as a major material, striving to show the Arab nation people as people who have totally lost their sense. According to the delusive Israeli imaginary, they are lacking will, vision and action in front of threatening danger, sitting idly observing them as if waiting for their suspicious arrival. Those Israeli studies present Arabs as only spectators watching events taking place around them. The misleading Zionist media has definitely left a negative influence even on the Western mind, which is assumingly conscious, pejorative mind that does not easily succumb to lies and illusions. However, it has submitted for a period to the lie, saying that Arabs do not intend to make any resistant action against the Zionist presence on their land. Israeli fabrications soon found themselves compelled to take off the Mendaki strap they have worn for so long. Then the Arab nation has shaken off dust from the heraldal eyelids that were waiting for a miracle to fall from sky-bearing news of land liberation. The beginning was when Arab lions roar thundered on the 6th of October 1973, announcing the birth of a shiny dawn for Arab dignity. On that day, Syrian and Egyptian forces had written down on history books pages of heroism showing bravery in Golan, Sinai, and on every inch of Arabic occupied territories. You have been listening to a new edition of the weekly program, Quest for Peace, World's Option, from Radio Damascus. With best regards from our sound technician, Hamdi Shweki.
شدوا همتكم يا رجال نبني الأوطان وأجيال تعلم أجيال ويعلى البنيان.
شدوا همتكم يا رجال نبني الأوطان، أجيال تعلم أجيال على البنيان.
نحن بسوريا تعلمنا كيف بنرسم مستقبلنا. نحن بسوريا تعلمنا كيف بنرسم مستقبلنا. سوريا مهد الحضارة رح تبقى رمز الأمان وأغلى الأوطان. حلوة حلوة يا بلدي حبك بقلبي أبدي. حلوة حلوة يا بلدي حبك بقلبي أبدي. رح تبقي بعيوني جنة يا بلادي إن شاء الله تتهني.
رح تبقي بعيوني جنة يا بلادي إن شاء الله تتهني.
بلادي يا أغلى الأوطان. بلادي يا أغلى الأوطان.
يا جال نبني الأوطان. أجيال تعلم أجيال يعلى بنيان. شدوا همتكم يا جال نبني الأوطان.
You are still tuned to Damascus Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, before signing off, here is a quick look at our news summary.
During his reception of the former candidates to the presidential elections, Al-Nouri and Hajar, President al-Assad says the high turnout at the ballot boxes has brought to light the strength of the Syrian people and their adherence to the free decision-making. Members of the people simply said that holding the presidential elections is a proof of the sovereignty of the Syrian state and its ability to overcome all conspiracies. Syrian Arab Red Crescent, in cooperation with the international community of the Red Cross in Syria, along with facilities offered by the Syrian government, delivers a convoy of humanitarian aid to the citizens in the western countryside of Aleppo. In Pakistan, Karachi airport is exposed to a terrorist attack for the second day running, but no casualties have been reported. And the Ukrainian army continues bombing Slovensk city east of Ukraine.
With this news summary, we come to the end of our English transmission for tonight from Damascus Radio. Please join us again at the same time and on the same frequency. Till then, we wish you all the best and a very good night.